Welcome back. We are now going to start annotating our images using Label Studio. So in the last video we had a whole bunch of our images in our project, and you might see something like this. You'll be able to look at this in a list or a grid view by clicking this on the right hand side here, and you should have a lot of images showing up kind of like I do here. And what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be actually annotating our images, which is going to tell the YOLO v5, our machine learning algorithm, where the objects are in the image. And just to show you an image that I've already annotated, here I have Mario. If you remember, we created all of our classes, which are all the objects, and some of those are Mario, Big, Pipe, and the ground. And you can see when I put my mouse over those, I have a bounding box. That's something that I've created. Similar to the pipe here, it's a little bit hard to see in the ground. Similarly, I have a bounding box around the ground. If I go to another image here, you'll see I have Mario, I have my two pipes, and the ground. Those are the objects that exist. Now, again, you can add more classes or different classes. If you wanted to try to find clouds and things, that's totally fine. That's extra above the minimum requirements. I'm just going for the objects that are in the scene that affect gameplay. So here I have some bricks. So let me actually annotate another image. Let's do this one together to give you an idea of how this works. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up an image. This one has no annotations in it. And you can see down here I have all of the classes. These are all the classes that I created. We have small Mario, big Mario, blocks, enemies, things like that. And we want to choose the class that we want to annotate. So I'm going to click on Mario Big, since this is a big Mario, and I'm going to actually drag a bounding box around Mario. Now I can hold Control and zoom in with the mouse scroll. Now this is really important. You want your bounding boxes to be as accurate as possible. So the bounding box should basically be right on the outside edge of the object. You want to do this as consistently as you possibly can, within the reasonable amount of effort. But what you don't want is something like this, yeah, Mario is in that box, but that confuses the AI because it's not sure, is that blue background part of the object or not. So we really want to constrain it as much as possible so that it starts to understand what the object is that we're trying to detect. So in this case, it's Mario. So you can see I went right under his foot here, right above his head. So I've kind of chopped him out. Now don't worry if things overlap. If things overlap, you always want to try to capture the bounding box of the whole object itself. So let's do another one. Let's do these bricks here. So I have my brick block, and let me hit escape here. Let me hit 8. So a little trick for you here is all of these classes have a shortcut key like 8. If I hit 8, it'll select that. So I don't have to click on everything. You can kind of get in a habit of doing things quick. Now you're going to notice that I'm going to do some overlapping here. That's totally okay because Mario does overlap with this block. We want to try to capture the object as if the whole object was there. So even if something is slightly partially hidden, we want to try to capture that with the bounding box. That's very important. Next I have a box or a brick or a block. What did I call that? A block here. So here's a block. I'm going to put that there. And then I have a brick. Again, I have a brick here. Let me put a brick here. So you can see this takes a little bit of time. This is why I didn't want to do 5,000 images with you guys. I'm going to do as many as I can before I think it starts to train, and then we'll go into the training section. So for this one here, I just have a little bit of the brick, but I'm going to try to capture this one actually. So I'm going to put a bounding box right to the edge here. Now I have the question block up here, so make sure I choose the question block object class. Okay, put that around there. And down here I have my pipe, so I'm going to choose my pipe class, and I'm going to capture the absolute outside edge. Don't worry about that space right here in the pipe. That's totally fine. We want to capture the actual outline of the object as much as possible and as consistently as possible. So you can see I've got all my objects. The only thing I'm missing now is the ground. So I will add a ground class, which is located number 9. And I can drag that there. I'll drag that all the way to the edge. So on this level, the ground goes all the way across. So you can see now when I put my mouse over these objects, they highlight, it looks good. And that is essentially complete. So once you've completed with the labeling of that image, click submit, and that will submit it. And if you go back to your project, you'll see all of the images that you have already done. So you can see I've done about 10 or a dozen or so. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to do a few more. You don't have to watch this part of the video. I'm not going to show this because this is just going to be repeating the same process. So you can go ahead and start working on your labeling. And next, let's look at what the output of the labeling is. Let's look at what we actually get from doing this labeling. Okay, so I'm going to export this data that I have. Now, all the things that I've annotated so far will be able to be exported. And I'm going to export this in a format called YOLO. So this is going to make it easy and compatible with YOLO v5. That's what we're using. That's the model that we're using for this. And I'm going to save a copy of this. Well, I'm just going to call this temp because I'm going to actually just use this to kind of show you what we are actually creating here with this. So as we go through and annotate, essentially we're creating like a data structure where it takes our images and it also structures some other information so that our machine learning algorithm can learn from these images. So the first thing it's going to include is all the images themselves. So these are all the images that I've already annotated. So you can see these are the images right here. These are just the original images that have the proper annotations in them. So other than the images, we have the labels. Now this is really the special part. So you'll notice that every image has a document called the same name.txt. These are the labels for that image. So let's look at our image number 0 again. We should have a Mario, a pipe, and a ground. I think this pipe was so small I left it out. So we should have 3 objects. Let's look at my txt file and let's see what's in there. And indeed there are 3 objects. Now looks like there's a mistake because I have 2 of the same class. So the format of this is essentially the class number, which is the number that represents the class. Like Mario might be number 1, pipe might be number 2. We have, I think, 16 objects. So this should be an integer from 0 to 15. And then these are coordinates. These are basically relative coordinates, like kind of as a percentage of the image that it gives you the exact location of the corners, essentially the bounding box of that object. So this data says Mario is in exactly these locations in that image. So this is a way that the data can be very easily understood by our machine learning algorithm. It can extract parts of the image without needing lots and lots of small images. Essentially, it tells the AI that on this screen, just pull out this part here and that's a Mario, pull out this part here and that's a pipe, etc. So that's essentially all that this tool is doing, is it's taking our data, our images, and providing these TXT files that will allow our machine learning algorithm to understand where objects are, where the number 7 object is where in the image. So let me go back to my first image. Let me see if I do have a mistake. Okay, and I found a small error. So I had accidentally labeled this pipe as a ground object, so that was an error. So now if I re-export my data, I'll call this temp again. We'll overwrite it. I'm not actually going to use this for training. Let's open that up. And let's see if that fixed. So there you go. Now you can see that we have 3 different classes, which is what we should have had. We should have had Mario, the pipe, and the ground, whichever one of these numbers is that, and then the relative location of those in the image. So that's our raw data. So that's the process of annotation. So this is going to take you some time. So start annotating your data as best as you can, and we will look next at how we can actually start using this data to training a machine learning model.